Hey there, Class 11 psychology students, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're stepping into a psychological time machine. We're going to fast forward right through your own future to explore the incredible journey of human development that's waiting for you. And honestly, not only is this going to help you completely ace your exams, but it's also going to give you a profound real-time understanding of exactly what your parents and your grandparents are going through right now. Let's get started.
Okay, let's dive into this. Right now, you're sitting in a classroom, probably thinking about your next exam, or maybe just hanging out with friends later. But a massive shift is looming right around the corner. I'm talking about the shift from the safe, guided world of school life straight into real-world financial accountability. Suddenly, it's not just about asking for an allowance to buy movie tickets. It's about paying your own rent, your own phone bills. So, are you ready for it? Let's look at the roadmap of how that actually happens.
Here is our quick itinerary for today's time travel. First, the transition to adulthood. Then, career and family, physical and cognitive shifts, navigating old age, and finally, coping with loss.
Section 1. The transition to adulthood. Leaving the dependency zone.
So this transition is the immediate next step for all of you. Right now, in Class 11, you're in a state of dependence. Think about it. If you bomb a math unit test, well, it hurts your grades, and maybe you get grounded. That's about it. But as you transition into adulthood, you move into strict independence. You start earning a salary. If you consistently fail to perform at a job, nobody's just going to give you a bad grade. You could actually lose your livelihood. The entire safety net vanishes, and it's a whole different ballgame.
So for your exams, how do we actually define this adult phase? Well, an adult is generally defined as someone who is responsible, mature, self-supporting, and well-integrated into society. But, and this is a big but, keep in mind that the timing of this varies wildly. Some students take up freelance jobs during college and mature super quickly, while others might get married but still rely financially on their parents. It heavily depends on your specific social and cultural context.
Let's map out the specific age brackets our time machine is traveling through today. We start with the 20s and 30s, which is early adulthood. The 20s specifically represent what we call the novice phase of adult development. Then we hit the 40s and 50s, which is middle age, and finally the 60s and beyond, which is classified as old age.
Section 2. Career, Marriage, and Family. The novice phase of the 20s and 30s.
This is the absolute core of your 20s and 30s, where young adults explore possibilities and build a life structure through three massive, life-altering transitions. Step 1 is work. You suddenly have to prove your competence and handle some really fierce competition. Step 2 is marriage. You now have to adjust your time, your space, your likes and your dislikes to accommodate a partner. And Step 3 is parenthood. While it's obviously accompanied by a profound feeling of love, becoming a parent is a highly stressful transition. Just imagine having a make-or-break office presentation, but you're up at 3 a.m. because your baby won't stop crying. It completely reshapes your daily reality.
Now, here's a fun fact that hits pretty hard in early adulthood. Right now, if you save up some cash, you might blow the whole thing on new sneakers or concert tickets, right? But after marriage and family, your spending completely shifts. Suddenly, it's all about mutual funds, electricity bills, and facing some very sudden financial constraints because your responsibilities have basically multiplied overnight.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what your own working parents might be dealing with. When both parents are working outside the home, they face an unbelievable juggling act. They might be taking a super stressful Zoom call for the office, while simultaneously making sure you finished your physics homework and coordinating doctor appointments for your grandparents. The stressors they're dealing with are just massive.
Section 3. Physical and cognitive changes. What happens in middle age?
During your parents' current phase of middle age, the body goes through natural maturation. We're talking about a decline in vision, like suddenly needing reading glasses, gradual hearing loss, wrinkles, and weight gain. But remember, fitness is the ultimate wild card here. You might see a 60-year-old Bollywood actor who looks incredibly fit and energetic, while a 35-year-old with a sedentary desk job might be aging rapidly. Your lifestyle dictates a whole lot of this.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how our brains actually adapt during this time. Short-term memory, like remembering an OTP right after checking your phone, that stays mostly intact. Long-term memory, however, does show a greater decline. But here is the amazing trade-off. While memory might slip just a bit, wisdom actually improves.
Which brings us to this. Have you ever noticed adults in their 40s, or perhaps your teachers, handing out free Jan or unsolicited wisdom?
Well, it's not just them being bossy. That is literally psychological development in action. Their logical thinking and all that accumulated life experience naturally drive them to share that wisdom with the younger generation. It's built in.
Section 4, Navigating Old Age, the changing face of aging. All right, we are now moving the time machine to your grandparents' phase. Because medical science is helping people live so much longer today, we need to completely shatter the old myth of aging. We often picture old age as purely an incapacitating, frightening, and entirely dependent phase of life. But the reality today? So many people over 70 are active, energetic, and highly creative. They're leading businesses, running in politics, and creating incredible art. However, that absolutely doesn't mean there aren't severe challenges. Older adults face retirement, which, interestingly, can cause a sudden loss of self-esteem and introduce real financial constraints. They have to cope with dwindling health and learn entirely new roles. And painfully, the generation gap is very real. When the children they raised move out and get totally consumed by their own fast-paced careers, barely having time for even a 5-minute phone call, it can trigger deep feelings of loneliness, insecurity, and even depression for the elderly. This quote from our source material is vital for understanding our specific cultural context. It says, Indian culture favors dependency of elderly on their children, for old age needs caring. In Oriental societies, parents rear their children with a fond, deep hope that those children will care for them when they grow old. So providing them with a sense of security and belonging during this time is absolutely crucial.
Section 5. Coping with Loss and Death. The Final Transition.
While death can happen at literally any point in human development, it is naturally most prominent in late adulthood. And there's a stark difference in how mortality occurs across age groups. In children and younger adults, death is usually caused by unexpected accidents, which society perceives as exceptionally tragic. In older adults, however, mortality is much more heavily linked to expected chronic diseases. So the crucial point here is understanding the profound impact of losing a partner. The death of a spouse is usually seen as the single most difficult loss in human development. Those left behind suffer deep grief, profound loneliness, depression, and severe health risks. And statistically, studies show that widows far outnumber widowers. Why? Primarily because women tend to live longer than men, and they often marry men who are older than themselves. Finally, it's pretty fascinating to see how deeply human development is influenced by culture, even at the very end of life. Different cultures view death in entirely unique ways. For example, in the Ganj culture in our country, it's actually believed that death is caused by magic and demons. Contrast that with the Tanala culture of Madagascar, where natural forces are thought to cause death. Our psychological framework is always deeply tied to our cultural beliefs. And that brings our time machine right back to the present day. We've covered the stress of early career adjustments, the physical decline of middle age, the financial anxiety of retirement, and the deep loneliness that can accompany old age. So my challenge to you, Class 11, is this. How can you use this psychological roadmap right now? Take a look at your parents juggling work or your grandparents seeking connection, and use this newfound knowledge to support them today. But more importantly, ask yourself, if human development is this complex, this predictable, and deeply tied to our culture, what other hidden psychological forces are secretly scripting your everyday life right now? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and stay curious.